Welcome to Cocoa Maker Episode 5. I'm here with Noah and Karl, and we're going to be teaching you the basics of Cocoa. This week, we're going to be teaching the way you manage files in C and in Cocoa. In C, you got these basic functions. fopen, which allows you to open a file by passing the path of the file and which mode you want to open the file with. The mode can be read, write, or append. Read is R, write is W, and append is A. Then there's fread, which is to read a certain amount of bytes into a string. fprint, which allows you to print a string into a file. fclose, which is to close a file. Remove, to remove a file. Rename, to rename a file. And then feof is to find out if it's the end of the file. And now let's give you an example of how to use this. In C, they don't have any way to check if a file exists, so I wrote this function which returns a boolean whether it exists or not, and it sends a consistent string. Consistent means that it's not changeable. You can't edit the contents of the string. In the first line, we're making a file reference, which by opening the file with the mode of read. And then we're checking if the file actually opened. If it did, then we're closing it and we're returning yes that the file exists. If it doesn't exist, then we just return no. In the main function, we're creating our little pool for auto-releasing. We're making a path to where the file is that we're saving. And I made that by expanding the tilde and the path, which the tilde means the home folder. So we're going home folder desktop file .txt. And we're returning it as a UTF-8, which is a consistent char or a string. In other words, we're defining the reference of file. We're checking if the file exists. If it doesn't, then we're opening it with write. We're making a reference of the current time. Then we're printing to the file with the time stamp with C time, and we're saying we just made this file. Making a new line with a \n for new line, \r is for return, \t is for a tab. If the file did exist, then we're just opening it with the append mode so we can add to the file. Next, we're just making another time reference, and then we're printing here's a new line with the timestamp from C time. We're closing the file, and then we're draining the pool. So now let's run our little program and see what the results are. It ran, and now if I go into the desktop, there's file.txt, and it says we just made this file, and then basically at the same time, here's a new line. And if we rerun this, it would add here's a new line to the file. Now in Cocoa, there are three basic classes. There is NSFileManager, which is the basic methods to find out if a file exists, create files, create folders, do all those sorts of things. NSFileHandle, which is a way to write and read files. NSFileWrapper, which is a way to change attributes of a file. Let's go ahead and give you an example of how to use these Cocoa classes. So in the main function, we're creating a pool like we did before. We're making a reference of the file manager, so it's easy to access. We're creating a string with the location of the file on the desktop, and then we're creating a reference of the file handle. And in this if, we're checking if the file exists with the file manager, and If it doesn't exist, we're creating the file with no attributes, no contents. But if we wanted to create the file with contents, we can put init data there with the contents of the file that we want. And then we're creating a reference of the file handle for writing with the location of our file on the desktop. Next, we're writing data to the file. We're creating an init string with the format, and whenever we do this, that means we can have different strings combined in a certain way, like I'm doing here, which is the timestamp. Then here is a new file. We're passing the timestamp, which is init date, as an argument to the string with format. After that, we're making it into a data by using encoding, and it's UTF-8 string encoding. And then, if the file does exist, we're just making a reference for it, writing with it, and seeking to the end of the file. At the end of the if, we're just writing data to the file, which is the timestamp. Here is a new line, and the same as the C thing. Basically, the same as the above, but with the different signs. And then we're closing the file and draining the pool. Now let's test this and see if it worked. It appears to have worked. Let's check the file. Here is a new file. Here is a new line. Worked. Now let's try running it again, see what results we get. Here's a new line. And it works. Thank you for joining this episode. I am James.
I'm Karl.
I'm Noah.
And that was Cocoa Maker. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I will either answer your question over email or on this podcast. If I answered your question on the podcast, I'll email you with the podcast one. Thank you for listening to Cocoa Maker, and enjoy making cocoa.